This story began Wednesday night at Newark International Airport, New Jersey, where I, Gregory Holmeston, Greg to my friends, was waiting in line to check in for an SAS flight home to Scandinavia. The flight was full, and I was asked to change to a later flight. After some negotiation, they replaced my tourist class ticket with a business class ticket for the next day. It was a real bargain for me. Another night of partying in New York, and a much more comfortable flight home. It was a very short stay in New York, just 3 days visiting a friend who promised me a really good time when I got to the Big Apple. The only reason for the short stay there was my cheap ticket, which I bought at a very bargain price from a guy who had no way of using it. It was impossible to change the departure time on that cheap ticket, so an extra night in New York was a real gift for me. The next pleasant surprise happened during the flight home. There was a girl sitting next to me with the sweetest smile I had ever seen. She told me that small talk on the flight was fine for her, and after about an hour, our conversation turned into a pretty serious conversation about relationships. We found out that both of us had recently broken up after a long-term relationship. My ex-girlfriend had won a decent amount of money in the lottery and was going on a backpacking trip around Asia and Australia with one of her friends for at least 6 months. We agreed that it would be an advantage for both of us to be free for such a long time away from each other. To be honest, I didn't really care because I was getting pretty sick of her. After explaining that my mother admired an American actor named Gregory Peck, after whom she named me, I told her that my friends call me Greg. My new acquaintance Elizabeth told me that her friends call her Lisa. She then told me a classic story about cheating. At one party, she had just discovered her boyfriend in the back seat of his car between the legs of a blonde woman with large breasts. In a rage, Lisa threw a rock through the glass of the back door and dumped her boyfriend. We then talked about what we expected from a new relationship, if any in the future. Both of us were surprised to find that our expectations were pretty much the same. We joked about the possibility of a happy marriage, but her very expensive worldview told me that she was unlikely to be interested in a regular guy like me. I told her the truth about what I did for a living and even why I was sitting next to her in business class with a ticket I paid less than 10% of her ticket price for. Back home, she didn't have her own car at the airport. I had my own, and to my delight, she accepted my offer to give her a ride home. At her apartment in a nice part of town, she surprised me greatly by promising to take me out to dinner for the money she would have paid for a cab from the airport. She kept her word, and dinner at a small, romantic Italian restaurant was a success, and I didn't mind when she offered to spend the evening at her house. We didn't get to have a night of tea, but I had no reason to complain about that because after a few kisses in the cab, we were both so horny that the only other option was to go straight to bed with her. We started undressing each other already at the front door, and when we got to the bedroom, we were both naked. The sex was intense, but gentle. She was gorgeous. I had never felt so strongly for a woman in my life, and as a result, she drove me to exhaustion 4 times. It was an unforgettable night for me, and apparently even for her, at least I was really hoping so. At breakfast, after morning sex, she asked me if I was proud of spending the night with a spoiled brute to brag to my friends, or if I was interested in having a serious conversation about continuing the relationship. I was, and after figuring out that everything said on the flight still stands, we decided to make an honest attempt at a relationship. Of course, 2 nights, 1 on the plane and 1 in bed, is a very short time to start a new relationship. But we decided to take the motto of a famous British organization, "He who dares wins." We dared to do the right thing, and our problems were less than one might expect for 2 people with such different backgrounds. I was a hard-working, self-employed small-town guy, and Lisa was a well-educated city girl with a high-paying job and very wealthy parents. One of the advantages was that Lisa's parents accepted me as her boyfriend. Her mother and I hit it off almost immediately when she remarked how happy Lisa was after we met. Her father was at least correct from the beginning, until he asked me if it was okay for Lisa's best friend, Karina, who was a lawyer, to take a closer look at me and my background. She did, and one evening she came to Lisa's apartment and had a long conversation with me in Lisa's presence. I had no bodies in the closet, so I told her everything she wanted to know. Apparently, Karina gave me a favorable review because Lisa's father told me that he didn't mind if I wanted to marry his daughter. We had a long conversation in private, during which I told him that Lisa's best friend, Karina, had promised to write us a prenuptial agreement whereby I would receive nothing of Lisa's assets if we broke up. After that, even he agreed with me. I suggested we have a small wedding at some romantic place with just our parents and a few friends, but Lisa's mom demanded a very large wedding. I didn't really care. After all, she was their only daughter, and the old custom of having the bride's parents officiate the wedding wasn't completely forgotten. After the wedding, Lisa and I had some good times. Lisa bought a house in a good neighborhood, and Karina persuaded Lisa to rent it for a low price so that she wouldn't kick me out immediately during a fight over something trivial. Lisa's mom was expecting grandchildren, but was disappointed every time she checked Lisa's belly, which never started to grow. We traveled a lot and tried many interesting outdoor sports, often with Lisa's best friend Karina and her husband. Lisa got several promotions at her job, and my business was so successful that I had to hire a highly skilled assistant. Then several of her friends, including Karina, got hooked on the baby boom, and after a while even we got into it, much to her mom's delight. But for us, it meant a whole new way of life. After much calculation and negotiation, I agreed to let Lisa pursue her career, but also agreed to be a stay-at-home dad, and just 18 months after our son was born, we had our daughter. For 6 months, Lisa stayed at home with both children to breastfeed, and after that, it was my responsibility to look after the most domestic chores. Lisa's mom helped me a lot so that I could devote a few hours a day to my work. Then, when we put the kids in daycare, I had more time to work, even though I was a real soccer dad. Our relationship with Lisa went on without too many problems. Quarrels were rare and, as a rule, for unimportant reasons. We never argued about money or yelled that we were fed up with each other. Because some of our friends had already broken up, Lisa and I considered ourselves lucky to have such a happy marriage and celebrated our 10th wedding anniversary with a big party. But sooner or later, every paradise has its snake. The snake in our paradise was a co-worker of Lisa's named Alan Peterson. He came from a management position at a competing company and brought several clients with him. He got a job at almost the same level as Lisa. Peterson may have been a very smart stockbroker, but as a person he acted like a real asshole and was unpopular with his fellow employees, including Lisa. In the evenings, she would tell me how nasty this Peterson was during the day and what stupid remarks he made to her. She was very angry with him, there's no doubt about that. But after about 2 months, I began to notice a slight difference in her comments about his actions, remembered what my friend Dan had told me about successfully seducing difficult targets, and realized that our marriage might be in trouble, possibly very serious trouble, in the near future. I never suspected Lisa of cheating, never wondered what she was up to, or supervised her when she went out with her friends or went on business trips. I had always trusted her, and she had always trusted me. But now I had a strange feeling about this Peterson guy. Dan, who had been a very successful woman hunter before he completely changed after meeting the girl of his dreams, claimed that an experienced seducer could seduce 80% of married female employees if he took his time and had sufficient social or economic qualifications, at least equal to his chosen prey. He even complained that psychopaths have great advantages because they never care what happens to their victims afterward. I used my new connections and got some useful information about Peterson's past. He wasn't a nice guy. His personal record included large debts and broken marriages. I feared that Peterson was a psychopath whose goal was to get to Lisa's bank accounts through her body. When Lisa didn't complain about Peterson for a while, I asked her what was going on, and she hissed with rage. Behavior can change. No one is ever truly bad. And now that the real bad boy has turned into a real good boy and become your favorite at work? She didn't bother to answer, but I realized my suspicions were not unfounded. Then we had a good summer, and Lisa's summer vacation lasted the entire month of July, when the family had a good time together and I didn't give Peterson a second's notice. But in August, a strange feeling about Peterson came back to me, and I gathered more information about him from available public sources. He wasn't a real good boy. Then the proverbial shit hit the fan at Lisa's boss's annual dinner, where the best people with spouses gathered. I always attended it without any problems or complaints from Lisa, but not this year. It started already during the socializing with the welcome drink. Lisa and I were standing around chatting with a few people when a rather stout-built man, a few years older than me, came up to us and gave Lisa a longer and tighter hug than is proper for a greeting in good manners. Then he asked her, without looking at me, "Did you bring your boyfriend here?" Before Lisa could find something to say, I replied loudly, "Is this the scumbag, Peterson, who's been harassing you all spring?" Peterson froze like a statue. Apparently, he wasn't used to being called a scumbag around his co-workers, and the skinny woman yelled at him to shut up and dragged him away before anything else could happen. Lisa was red-faced when she left me to talk to her friends. Two young men who heard the conversation came up to me, shook my hand, and said that they agree with me about Peterson, but I should know that he bragged about being the first man to sleep with Lisa, and that he had already had some success because they had had lunch together several times. They asked for my card and promised to keep me posted on how Peterson was working with Lisa. During lunch, Peterson asked me, "You're working with the new kitchen equipment, aren't you?" "Yes." "Can you tell me what's new and hot in the future?" I'd heard this before. He wanted me to start with some chit-chat about the latest news so he could then interrupt me with an amusing line about the kitchen stove. I replied, "New and hot? A new stove used to meet those expectations? But isn't it silly to dream of expensive new stoves while a bailiff is after you with a blowtorch up your ass?" The chuckles were on my side, which pissed Peterson off like a bee. He shouted to me, "Maybe we'd better get out for some business talk." I stood up and replied, "My dear Peterson, with great pleasure." Peterson remained seated, and Lisa called out to me in an angry voice, "Sit down." I sat down, but couldn't resist the temptation to say, "For the second time tonight, you're running off like a hem hanger." This provoked more laughter, and the faces of both Peterson and Lisa turned red. Peterson's wife was among those laughing. In the cab on the way home, they didn't utter a word. Our children were at her parents' house, and at home a hurricane came at me with all the things I had done wrong and how ashamed she was of me. She ended the long list by saying, "How the hell could you do this to me?" I raised my voice. "Why the hell did you make out so shamelessly with that scumbag in front of me and not object to his derogatory comment about me? Do you really think I'm some kind of freaking foundling? What the hell is going on between you and him? I heard about your romantic dinners. Have you really lost your mind and fallen in love with such a creep?" Now she obviously realized that even she had a hand in how the vendetta between Peterson and me had begun. But she still held me responsible for it. "What is it with you today? You're jealous and overreacting as soon as someone says something to you?" Reacting? Were you amused when your dear psychopath friend did his best to humiliate me among your co-workers? And now you're making a fuss at me because I was able to take care of myself and make him look bad. As far as I can tell, you were the one and only on his side. Even his wife appreciated what I did to him. How the hell could you possibly know about his dealings with the bailiff? Didn't you? Of course not. That kind of business is his personal business. Not when he's on his way to seduce a stupid rich wife. She's an adult and can do what she wants, but her two children can't choose who they want to grow up with, their real parents or foster parents. It's my duty to help them, isn't it? She'd had enough and went to bed. I stayed a while longer, so when I went to bed, she was already asleep. The next morning, we had a silent breakfast before she went to her parents' house to pick up our children. Then everything went downhill when she came home from work on Monday. She told me that Peterson was sorry for the problems. He wanted our families to be friends and spend time together from time to time. As a gesture of peace, he invited us to dinner Saturday night. The only stipulation was that I had to call my boss and Peterson and admit that I regretted what I had done at the dinner. In Lisa's opinion, this was a very good decision. If I had any objections and refused to cooperate with them, I would have to sleep in the spare room until I changed my mind. Now I'd had enough, and I yelled at her, "What the hell did that creep do to you for getting complete control of your mind? I can tell you that I've already talked to your boss, who doesn't hold a grudge against you." I picked up my cell phone and asked her, "Please give me Peterson's number so I can tell this goddamn pile of shit what a miserable asshole he really is." Lisa refused to give me his number. Instead, she said, "You're sleeping in the spare room." "Yeah, but not in your spare room." I went up to our bedroom and started packing my suitcase. Lisa walked in a while later, saw what I was doing, and yelled, "What the hell are you doing? Did you forget I got kicked out of here?" She began to realize that Peterson's suggestions had led to the worst crisis in our marriage, which was still very close to spiraling out of control. She replied in a very soft voice, "It's the same as mine, and I can't and won't kick you out of the house." Even I replied in a soft voice, "Why are you taking such stupid orders from this conniving psychopath who wants to destroy our marriage?" For the first time in our marriage, she started crying during an argument. "Please forgive me and stay home. I love you so much, and I am sorry for all the stupid things I said to you. Please forgive me. I love you too, but don't ever bring any Peterson crap into this house again. Do you understand that?" "Yes, I promise." We had great sex that night, and we became a happy family again without a word about Peterson. Lisa never mentioned to me that Peterson was involved in a serious problem at work when he lost an important client. He had to attend a board meeting of the client's company to explain his proposal to invest their large cash flow. But he had trouble opening his garage door, noticed his car had a flat tire, couldn't find a jack, called a cab. The cab arrived but took the wrong road, got lost, and Peterson got lost. Peterson got into an argument with the driver, who got angry, stopped the car, and dragged Peterson out of it, kicked his ass, and drove off with Peterson's briefcase in the back seat. Peterson, who had a laptop, a quote, and a cell phone in his briefcase, was unable to get new documents and catch a plane, losing his contract. Our happy family life continued until Thursday of the following week after a fight in the spare room. Lisa bribed the kids to have our family fun on Saturday instead of the usual Friday because she promised to join her co-workers at the bar after work. Her after work lasted less than half an hour. She came home angry as a wasp, and her light brown skirt was completely wet from the beer. She never told me what happened, but I found out from other sources anyway. Lisa and Peterson had found a secluded booth, grabbed large mugs of beer, and were anticipating a nice time together when a drunk man approached them with a large glass of beer in his hand. He began to complain about the government and paid no attention to Peterson's polite attempts to get rid of him. After a while, Peterson lost his temper and told the drunk to back off. This was foolish of him because the drunk even became angry, spewed the contents of his glass in Peterson's face, pushed 2 glasses off the table onto Lisa's lap. He then punched Peterson hard on the nose so that it bled. The other guests paid almost no attention to the altercation, and no one tried to stop the drunk as he left the bar. As Lisa was taking her after-work shower, I committed the most shameful act I had done to her during our marriage. My only excuse was that strange things happen in war and love. I took Lisa's cell phone from her purse and hid it in a safe place in my home office. Lisa had promised her mother to go shopping with her on Saturday morning. The kids were playing with friends, and I had plenty of time to study Lisa's cell phone. Apparently, all incoming and outgoing messages had been deleted on Friday morning because there were only 2 incoming messages, both marked read, and 1 outgoing message. The first message, received at 9:25 a.m., read, "My dear Elizabeth, I love you very much, and I have a much better offer for the afternoon than after work in a crowded bar. You know what? Please say yes to your faithful lover. Love, A. The damn asshole went farther than I expected. I read her response, mailed at 10:12. Alan, please calm down and remember what I said to you yesterday during our lunch. After work, and if you be a good boy, you'll wait until your birthday. She was playing with fire, teasing a psychopath who might be out of her control sooner than she expected. His next message, arriving at 11:44, read, Love, been busy all morning. Looking forward to my birthday and thinking about you all the time. If you let me, after work is fine. Your faithful admirer, A. Something serious was going on between them and obviously close to happening. Checking the almanac in her phone, I found the day marked as AP's birthday only 3 weeks prior. I decided it was time for Lisa to make her choice. I noticed that Lisa was looking for something over the weekend, but didn't tell me anything. Over the weekend, 2 more text messages arrived on her phone. The first was on Saturday. My love, I'm sorry about that incident after work. It caught me off guard. Your loyal fan, A. I wasn't tempted to reply, and on Sunday, a new message arrived. My beloved Elizabeth, I'm sorry and hope you forgive me for Friday. Looking forward to seeing your bright eyes and sweet smile tomorrow. A. Peterson didn't see her smile on Monday or Tuesday because he spent most of the day in the hospital. Early in the morning, he rushed to the post office to get the newspaper. This Monday, he fell so unluckily that he broke his right arm. He yelled that there was a wire between the railings on the stairs, but his wife didn't notice anything when she examined the steps. On Wednesday, he paid a visit to work. Lisa hadn't said a word to me about it, but as usual, other sources kept me in the loop. I called Lisa's boss, told him I was free between 2 jobs for week number 47, and asked if Lisa had anything important planned for that week. I wanted to surprise her with a week off. He called me back an hour later and said he was fine with her taking a vacation for that week. Friday night during family vacation time, I told Lisa and the kids about the week in Mauritius. The kids were very excited, and Lisa agreed that it was a good idea and promised that she wouldn't mind if she took a vacation for that week. Apparently, she had no contact with Peterson over the weekend because the expected objections to the vacation didn't come until Monday when she got home from work. Lisa told me that we should move the vacation trip from week 47 to week 48 because she had an important meeting on Wednesday of week 47. I replied, Is that meeting really that important? You know week 47 is the only possible week for me, and I know these trips sell out long in advance. I was lucky enough to get our tickets from a friend at a travel agent who called me when she got 4 tickets back. Don't you think the kids will be disappointed if we cancel the trip? Let me talk to the kids and explain everything to them. I'm sure they'll agree to go another time if we go to Euro Disney on a weekend when you have the weekend off. Hadn't you better start explaining your problems to me? Dear Elizabeth, I spoke to your boss before I booked the trip, and he was fine with you taking a week off. According to him, you didn't have anything important planned for that week. I don't think I'd called her Elizabeth since saying our wedding vows in church, and I'd never talked about her job with her boss. She realized we had a much bigger problem than before, and a frightened expression appeared on her face as she replied in a soft voice, He didn't check up on me. No, but he did with your secretary. The only unusual thing this week is Peterson's birthday on Wednesday. He told me that he would be celebrated at work as usual, given flowers and eat birthday cake during the 11 o'clock coffee break. No exceptions would be made for Peterson. Now I looked her straight in the eye before continuing. My dear Elizabeth, if this Peterson means so much to you that a half-hour coffee break with him is more important than a week's vacation with your family in Mauritius, I must accept your choice. But I doubt I can continue our relationship after such a serious humiliation. She now realized that she had lost all control of the situation and began to sob. No, you have the wrong impression. I didn't mean what you think I meant. Of course, my family always comes first for me. We will be going to Mauritius in week 47. I wanted to clear the air once and for all and continued. I'm glad you changed your mind, but your first choice of having a coffee break with Peterson before a week with your family in Mauritius sounded totally weird, even if you have some warm feelings for him. Surely you must have something more important to do that week. My dear Elizabeth, please tell me what. Isn't it time you told me what is going on between you and this Peterson? Her face now turned ash gray as she continued to sob. I felt sorry for him because he doesn't have many friends at work, and he was hurt in an accident. I wasn't supposed to know much about Peterson's problems, so I replied, "An accident? He got a nosebleed during a bar fight. Your coworkers told me he poured his beer in your lap and some other guest punched him in the nose. But they didn't care that Peterson and you were alone, like lovebirds in a booth and not with the others. Peterson broke his arm in an accident. But that doesn't stop you from being involved in something serious with him. What? Are you in love with him? I know about your romantic lunches. How far have you and him gotten? Please tell me the truth." "I love you. Only you. I like him as a good friend. But no, I don't love him, and I could swear I've never slept with him or anyone else since I met you." Now I'd had enough, and I screamed. "Please tell me what was so damn important in that damn 47th week. Did you promise to fuck him as a birthday present?" Lisa realized that her co-workers at work kept me in the loop about what Peterson was bragging about at work. She looked me straight in the eye before she decided to give in and tell me the truth. "Yes." She noticed the disgust in my eyes and continued until I found something to say. "Yes, I promised to have sex with him on his birthday, but I don't love him, and my promise wasn't a gift. The reason is that he won the contest, and it was his prize. I was so confident of winning that I accepted his offer and bet a one-time sex session against his 500 shares of Volvo stock. But please believe me, that was the only reason for my promise. I love you. Only you. Please don't do anything stupid until you know the whole truth." "You don't love him?" "I didn't get that impression during the company dinner and the Monday afterward when you brought his shit home with you and almost kicked me out of the house. He attracted me by giving me a lot of kind attention after I decided I was the one who turned him from an arrogant asshole into a loving friend. Today I know him better. And keeping the promise you made to him was more important than your marriage? You can't be so stupid that you really thought I'd stay married to you after you slept with that asshole, can you? You'd never know. And the contract says that if I lose the contest and don't fulfill my promise to pay his prize of domestic pleasures, I owe him 5,000 shares of Volvo stock. No problem. I'll give him the shares because my marriage is worth more than that. It's amazing how love can turn a smart girl into a naive bitch. First of all, I was the first to find out about your cheating and he got rid of me. I bet your sex would have been very well documented and I bet he would have sent me copies. Second, once you're in his net, you'll be his whore until he kicks you out. Third, he doesn't own stock in the 500 Volvo, so there's no competition. Fourth, it'll turn out he cheated during the contest. Fifth, he'll get your next top job and fire you afterward, ruin your marriage, and swindle large amounts of your money. He is a smart man in many ways, and no doubt he could have succeeded if you were alone. But you were lucky to be supported by people in the background who really love you. You don't have to pay him anything. Oh my God, how much do you know? Enough to save you from this trouble. He was fired from his last job, but they played on the fact that they lost the ultimate power to preserve their goodwill. His backroom deals with competitors cause serious problems for your company, and he will be fired tomorrow with no benefits. I'm sure he will never pester you about competition. Epilogue. We had a nice vacation in Mauritius and felt like newlyweds again. When Lisa's boss was promoted to a senior position in a multinational company, Lisa was the first woman to get his old job. It was her company's 97th year in business, and most of the comments said it was long overdue for a woman to take the top job. I sold my business and took a job with Lisa's father, whom he had persuaded to hire me after our successful collaboration to rescue Lisa from the Peterson trap. I made suggestions, we worked out plans together, he knew people who had connections to those who could do the job, and he insisted on taking the pay. All 3 operations were successful. We regretted sending the case back to Peterson, but it turned out to be for the best. I gave up my doubts about Lisa's father's job when Lisa said to me, "Dad needs a good man for the job, and you've been suggested by several people. Please accept." Peterson's wife left him well cleaned up, and after a long period of unemployment, he left town and took a job as a traveling insurance salesman. According to recent rumors, he had already become one of the best men both in sales and in seducing married women during his business trips.